Welcome to Unlearn, where we talk to industry leaders about unlearning how we go to market.
I'm Kelly Sarabyn, and I run Tech Partner Enablement and Advocacy at HubSpot.
And I'm Mathew, co-founder of Partnership Leaders.
The old ways of going to market are getting more expensive and less effective.
To thrive in an era of digital transformation, you have to go to market differently. Let's find out how. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Unlearn podcast. We're here with the amazing Kelly, and today we have Eron. Eron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, Eron Sunando. So I run all things partner related at Asana. I've been here for a really good 7 months.
Great. Kelly, what's new in your life?
Well, I don't think we're going to go into that, but
okay. Wait, this is
to start the podcast off. Eron, what's top of mind for you, just as a partner professional in the industry, or anything go to market or tech? Like, what's top of your thoughts?
Okay, yeah. Before we go there, we should just let the audience know a little bit about Eron. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your career? Because you went from like banking to like Salesforce to like Conversica, which is where I knew you from. So. Let's hear the journey a little bit here.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like I want to say maybe 10 plus years ago, somebody said to me, hey, you'd be really good running partners and alliances. And I said, I would never do that job.
and now that person is laughing and they're so smug. They're like, I called that.
Yeah. And so, I've done a lot of things. So I was in banking for almost a decade. I was at UBS. I was at Barclays Capital. I was a management consultant at IBM. Spent time at Salesforce. I've also worked, majority of my career has been in Asia Pacific. So I've been in Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, back to Japan for a second tour of duty. And then I came back to the US 4 years ago. I've got 3 lovely daughters, all born in 3 different countries. It was not planned. It was just like, we went from one opportunity to another, and we were a young family and we were adventurous. And I have a very amazing, supportive wife who, has become very good at packing boxes and unpacking them as well.
Wow.
And she basically says, I know what to do. Like, you just kind of get out. And so I kind of just do a little bit, but I don't think we'll be moving anytime soon, I think. But yeah, so my career from like a T model perspective have been very, wide in some spectrum, like a lot in a deep. Like I would say I'm industry wise, I'm pretty well versed in financial services, both on the retail and then the capital market side. And then I also joined a startup. So what Asher mentioned, I left Salesforce and joined a 100% startup called Conversica in a conversational AI space. That was a really, really great experience. I was the chief revenue officer there. I think working for a small company, you get to see everything, right? The full end to end. And then as CRO, I also saw the money end to end, from like coming in and going out. So, and then I joined Asana 7 months ago to kind of build the ecosystem, like the whole partner ecosystem, both on the technology side as well as on the channel solutions and SI side. So the full breadth. I also own corporate development. So all business development, it sits under me as well.
See, the reason why I was excited to chat with Eron is like, it is thought of that a partnerships leader's worst nightmare is a CRO. And then there's very few people that have actually become CROs, and you've actually done both sides of the role. So we can actually like spend a little bit of time unpacking like both sides of the picture as current times, or how to do partnerships in current times, and maybe like provide people some guidance on like how they should think about 2025. But we can get to that a little bit. But what's top of mind for you, as Kelly was saying?
I think what's top of mind for me is, AI is everywhere, but what I see and hear a lot from our customers is the tech stack is very complicated, right? Yeah. Like if you think about just our own personal tech stack, like my daughter at times would look at my phone. She goes, how many apps do you have? Like, she's just like looking at this, right? And then you extrapolate that into the business world, and think about the number of apps that a typical salesperson, an AE, has to deal with, right? They'll be like, forecast will be in, I don't know, like Clary, and then scripting from calls could be in Gong, but they also use Zoom, and then they will use Salesforce for CRM, then they'll use like, I don't know, like some other tools for outbounding messaging. They'll use CPQ for like, it's like you just want them to sell, right? And yet you have to train them across, I don't know, 10 applications that they have to live with on a regular basis. It's crazy, right? Like in every role, whether you're in marketing, operations, um, we have become so complex. For me, this is where partners can really help, because our customers also say like, hey, we don't want to be the SI. Like
Yeah.
we don't want to be the ones that are plugging all this stuff in together, right? And this is where I think like partners could really help, because partners can help to kind of elevate some of that complexity out of, so allow people to kind of really do their jobs, right? And then I was with Kelly actually last week. Is it last week? No, this week.
It was this week, but it does feel like last week.
Yeah, we were
You
together.
guys hung out at a party and didn't invite me?
No, we had a workshop in Boston. So I was at the HubSpot headquarters, and we were looking at like, what can we do together? But
Okay, so you guys did a pre-podcast to this podcast. Got it.
yeah, we had a really good powwow together.
Wait, so we're going to criticize Asher on ABC. We're going to come in hard.
Yeah. We were talking about like, obviously like the sweet spot was like, small, medium businesses, right? SMB, kind of lower, sort of mid-market. And if you think of an SMB person, they're like, they just want to run their business.
Yeah, totally.
And yet they have to deal with all of these applications, right? And systems, right? From like marketing to email, they got to deal with finance and accounting. Like they're like, guys, I just want to be a baker. I just want to make the best cookies, or like the best cakes, and have happy customers and happy kids when they eat my cake.
Correct.
But now it's like they're probably overwhelmed with like, I didn't know that I have to actually be a system engineer. I actually have to be a solution engineer. I actually have to be an SI to run my business, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, that's top of mind. We're like, where can we help? From whether it's our own tech stack or our kind of ecosystem of partners to kind of just help, let people focus on what they want to do, right?
And and we could dive into this, because I have a couple of thoughts that I would run by you, because my 6-year-old son actually like uses ChatGPT for everything. Like he was on YouTube Shorts, and now he's on ChatGPT pretty much the entire day, because it actually talks back to him. He's like, oh, there's somebody who can actually give me information back. And
Asher, are you supervising this, or is ChatGPT now his best friend?
Probably, but he actually wrote a pretty like my kids write me thank you letters, right? So like he actually wrote a pretty awesome like thank you letter, and I'm like, one of the things was ChatGPT, and the other thing was autopilot in Tesla. So that just shows you where kids in the Bay Area are at. But you guys just had a partner summit as well, right? Like in a customer symposium. I'm curious what your partners were sharing, or was it similar to the feedback?
Yeah, it was again. This was a hot topic around helping kind of reduce the complexities at the customer site, right? And one of the topics was the fact that, hey, Asana is a collaborative work management. We've kind of grown from like, a lot of people know us probably as task or project management, but we're kind of more than that. But the whole idea is the fact that how do we position a platform like Asana to kind of help extract value from all the other applications, right? And also the fact that like we're probably going to be one of 10 applications that customer has to use. But we talked a lot of things like, I shared my experience. I was in Japan just a couple of weeks ago, and we had a partner who was like, hey, we really want to build a solution for some of these industries or sectors within industries that kind of got left behind during the digital transformation phase. So we're talking about a lot of probably self-owned small manufacturers, right? Like, or medium-sized manufacturers in Japan. And they were like, they still don't know how to figure out Zoom. They still don't know how to figure out like Miro, Figma, like some of these other stuff that we kind of take for granted. But they're like, hey, we want to build an offering where it's like Zoom plus Miro plus Asana, right? So it's like, it's brilliant. You have the video collaboration tool, right? In the form of Miro. You have the kind of video and communication tool in Zoom, and then you have kind
Yep.
of like the project execution piece like in Asana, and then you bundle that. And if you're a kind of old school manufacturer, right? You're like, hey, there's a partner who's going to bundle all these three applications already integrated, and you're just going to run it for me as a service.
Yeah.
Like that's great, because then I don't have to think of like what applications I have to buy, how do I integrate the data, right? If there's somebody out there who can kind of build all this for me,
Yep.
like that's music to their ears. So that was kind of like really kind of like a big topic. And then the other big topics at our partner summit was around just relaunching of the Asana partner program, right? So we're going to be, our fiscal year is going to be starting February 1. So we're
Okay.
launching, a brand new partner program. We're going to have a brand new partner directory. We're going to have a brand new partner academy. We're investing heavily into, let's call it the programs and infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because that's what partners need. Like partners need to be able to kind of do their job, support the customer. So we shared a lot of that during the event as well.
And our friends at Spur Reply are actually helping you, right? They're we know them pretty
Spur,
well. They're
Spur
great.
is awesome. Spur's been leaning in very hard and kind of helping to drive a lot of our I'll say thinking. Helped us also scope out, hey, what else are other people doing in the market? What's best practice? What's interesting is, there really isn't like, this is the way to do it, right? Every company does their partner program differently, and which is fine, because every company is going to be at a different stage in life, right? And they're going to be focusing on very different things. So, people were saying, hey, like, you should be like this company, should be like that company. I'm like, we'll take the bits and pieces and the best of it. And where Asana is different than where, let's say, HubSpot is, right? So, what I realize is we got to do what is best for us today,
Yep.
and probably over the next 18 months, and we'll evolve. Like this whole thing is an evolution.
Yeah, I mean, if you look to the market the last 3 to 5 years, you see a lot of relaunches of partner programs. And I think it's partly because the motion itself is evolving quickly, but also for the reason you're saying, right? Like what works in one stage of development with one size of ecosystem is not necessarily going to be ideal 2 years later. So I would love, though, one thing that people are talking about in terms of partner programs, so I'd love to hear your thoughts, is this concept of partner type versus where they're adding value in the partner journey. So like the problem you were just describing, right, of having like too many systems can be solved through tech partnerships to some degree, right? So like our sellers, for example, Sendoso built a really cool app to HubSpot where you can just use Sendoso inside HubSpot. So they no longer they can just do that off the deal, right? That's a win. But to your point, like, I mean, almost all cases, like you're going to still need like that system integrator. So it's like both partner types working together. But is that something that came up in your kind of like reworking, is like this concept of like structuring the program around these different partner types, which they do have different business models, right? So like a system integrator has one business model, a SaaS company like HubSpot or other partners would have a different business model. So having a program needs to reflect that they have different business models, but at the same time, they might both be influencing the deal, right? You might have an app partner in there helping, the solutions partner in there helping, and they could both be sending you referrals. So there's like, they can be helping at different stages on the journey. Is that something that came up in your analysis?
Yeah. So actually the new partner program we're going to launch has distinct paths to depending on what type of partner you want to be. And maybe there's a bit of overlap, but basically we have the solution partner. So the program has solution partners that kind of do end to end. We have services partners. So companies like Spur Reply, like they're like, purely services oriented. They're not truly in there to like kind of sell the licenses and kind of do like they're purely like consulting and services. We also have then the tech partners, right? So like the HubSpots and the Googles of the world, like, that's like a separate bucket. And then we have referral partners. Like we have partners who are like, hey, we have a lot of contacts, like a lot of these YouTubers, right? Like it was kind of funny, like before I joined Asana, part of my preparation was going to YouTube and just watching demo videos, or like, and I found a lot of influencers out there around project management, around work transformation, and they were doing demos of Asana. Some of them had like 10,000 followers, some have 100,000 followers, right? And I don't think they're interested to be a service partner. I think most of them are interested to be a solution partner, but they could be a great referral partner by which, like, at the end of their course or whatever, there's a QR code by which, like, if you're interested, here's a discount code, right? We've also just signed this past quarter partnership with MasterCard,
Oh
for
wow.
example, for their um, small business and entrepreneur program, right? So if you're starting your business, you're banking with MasterCard, or you have a MasterCard business card, you could now go into the MasterCard like marketplace, and literally just because you're a MasterCard customer, you get a discount off buying Asana, for example, right? So those are like very like we're definitely in tune of creating different types of motion with different type of partners,
Yeah.
right? Ultimately, kind of get the biggest reach in market.
Yeah, that's a sick deal. Taking advantage of your fintech connections, huh?
That's pretty good. Yeah, yeah. So
Next, you're going to tell us you're going to create a partnership with an insurance company, for their SME program, and you're like, wait.
we're speaking with we're speaking with one out of a large
Yeah,
insurance provider out of Europe who invests in a lot of insurtechs,
yeah,
and they want these insurtechs to be successful, and they want them to be efficient in
yeah,
terms of how these people manage projects, go to market, manage work, and so obviously having Asana, for example, as part of the tech stack,
yeah, totally.
right, is important. So we kick the tires a lot with PEs as well. So PEs, VCs, some of these large companies that may potentially have an ecosystem of small businesses.
Okay.
That's definitely a big playbook for us.
Yeah, yeah. I found like VCs less so, but like I think private equities companies, if you can get in their playbook, this is a pretty good way to get
Yeah,
distribution.
yeah.
The
I
VCs
think
I feel like are just trying to figure out how to get to the next dollar, like, and if you are
yeah,
in that
that's a
space,
great point. We're also talking with some of the major banks that have some of these programs. So there's another major U.S. financial institution we're speaking with as well. That's like, hey, like we invest on these companies. We kind of like try to recommend the best of breed software so they can run faster. I also want to say that HubSpot Marketplace, right, is great. Like it's one of the ones that have kind of generated a lot of really positive momentum for us because I have a thesis or a story in my head that like startups or small companies go to HubSpot, they go to the marketplace, they look at like what else do people like me as small business owners
yeah,
kind of
utilize, yeah,
purchase, and then so they'll look at these. Oh, I didn't think about buying this. Oh, I think maybe I should get this. And so there's almost like a package, a virtual packaging. We haven't really packaged anything, but in their minds there might be a package of suite of solutions that
yeah.
a bakery owner will need because other bakery owners have bought it, for example.
Yeah, which I think AI is just going to make those marketplaces even more powerful, right? Because as we can now personalize those type of recommendations, so like the bakery owner does see like the data that backs what the type of systems are that profile uses. I think marketplace as a discovery mechanism is just going to get more and more optimized, which is going to be
Yeah,
great for partners
yeah.
and for the customer.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, because you go in there with like maybe before you even look at software, the AI could actually ask you questions. It's like, how big is your company? Like, where are you located? What languages do you support your customers with? There's a whole bunch of like I would say qualification discovery questions, and then the AI
Yep.
can say, well, here are applications that we would recommend based on customer reviews or how many 3 stars or 4 stars, whatever it is, right? And it can kind of come out and recommend kind of
And
the
if you're
right.
a customer, we already have that data, right? Or like any marketplace where the customer's logged in. But then, yeah, on the prospect side, you could even just set it up to have that conversation. So with a program, it sounds like you've created these separate pathways, and then you have like a overarching vision of kind of like the partner community around Asana that you're going to build, and like that kind of unified. We're part of this ecosystem together, and then we have the individual pathways. Is that the essential model that you're kind of launching?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this play out really well when I was at Salesforce. Salesforce had this whole concept of a Salesforce economy. If you've gone to Dreamforce or some of their major events, they talk about Salesforce economy, which is like, hey, look at how many jobs we created because of like just people getting certified to be on Salesforce, right? Look at the people who were able to change their careers because of Salesforce. And then they have this almost like self-sustaining grassroots communities in various parts of the world where admins get together, help out each other. They have separate communities that they spin off. Like, I think the way they got there was, because it is a true platform versus just a product, right? And they also have this kind of like citizen developers. They
Yep.
put a lot of effort in terms of developer support, developer tooling, developer infrastructure. That kind of, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I came from IBM where like we would charge an arm and a leg for people to get certified on IBM products, right? You make it like very expensive. Cisco was the same, right? That was kind of like almost like the former model. And then when I came to Salesforce, in 2016, and I found their whole concept of Trailhead, where like it's all free, which is I was like, what do you mean it's all free? Like it's all free, and then if you're on, and then you can get certified, you can be an admin. It's all free, and then when you log in, they give you your own sandbox. You can even like tinker and create applications. It will run backend checks on it and say, yes, you made these mistakes or you didn't pass. It was like amazing for me. It was like a complete shift of mind where like certification used to be like this high bar and it's expensive to get to. Salesforce just kind of took that away. I thought that was like brilliant, right? Because the more people who know the platform, the more kind of span of reach you have. And so I kind of want to steal a little bit from that story and kind of also potentially build an Asana community. And we have an Asana forum, but I'd love to have kind of Asana's, champions everywhere in every segment of the world and every segment of the market.
Yeah. And do you have a formal developer relations program as well? As I'm learning more about this, like developer marketing and things like that, it feels like that's a separate unit, but it sometimes
Yeah,
is in the partner team or sometimes doesn't sit in the partner team.
yeah, we don't like, that's like one of the, kind of topics of discussions right now. We're in FY26 planning is around like, what is the future around developer support communities? I think we have some of the best, when I speak to our partners,
Yeah.
yeah, they said we have some of the best developer documentation. Like we have like really great API
Yeah.
documentations, it's really thorough, it's updated and all this stuff. But I would say, beyond kind of documentation and guidelines and kind of I would say initial sort of code checks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
we really haven't invested as much as we would like to, and that's part of
Yeah.
the
Like
stuff.
do some hackathons and things like that.
Yeah, like we haven't engaged our partners into hackathons. Like our
Yeah.
hackathons have been internal,
Internal. Yeah. Yeah.
historically. Um, I'd love to get partners. I'd love to get customers into our
Yeah.
hackathons.
Yeah.
I'd love for us to be able to like, hey, as we release new things,
Yeah.
how are we verifying that the code that was built for this integration 2 years ago is also verified automatically, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
right? So,
It feels like you're somewhere similar journey as where Canva is. We're gonna have Canva's head of ecosystem on the pod
oh,
next
nice.
week. Well, after the pod, I'll make a connection for you two. You guys should
Yeah,
chat.
we'd love to connect. And Ash, I got to like I would say the eighth inning of the application for the alliance organization, and then
Completed.
I got busy or like we asked for additional stuff, and I was like, oh, can't deal with this right now, and then I kind of dropped out. So I'll have to
That's all right. I mean, this
application.
podcast is actually a Kelly and me separate, regardless of our organization's podcast. But
Okay, it's just a reminder for me to
yeah, yeah,
complete
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
I'm happy to also send you a reminder to join partnership leaders. That's also okay.
yes, that's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. So
This is probably the first time that's happened in the podcast where somebody's like, "Hey, oh, I remind you, I just got to join partnership leader." So we must be maturing in our, go to market with that. So, okay, let's go back to like the first thing that we were trying to talk about, just the AI tech stack and stuff. There is I want to say, evolving or maybe new hypothesis around AI agents being able to replace PDMs. The partner development managers. Like and when I first heard it, I was laughing like Kelly too, because I'm like, that's one part of it, right? So there's the, can we automate the partnering function or the partnering process through an agent? And then the second hypothesis is around, well, what if we remove the entire partnering organization and have the agents support sales teams with the 5 different partnering selling motions, right? And is there a sales rep that exists that can utilize the agent to be their co-seller, and so I was really
Saying this, Asher. Who ideas are these?
I'm
No, no,
hanging
the
out.
first one. The first one I think is there's some discussion there. The second one sounds a little
I'm hanging out with the partnership Illuminati, so I can't reveal names and sources.
no names will be
Yeah,
had.
you have your rings, like secret
Exactly. We
rings
have
that you have to
secret
like go in, and
handshakes. We have our secret clubs that we hang out at. So it's like
those are good symbols,
exactly,
Well,
yes.
if sellers and agents replacing the whole partner function is what comes out of
exactly.
the
I
Illuminati,
mean,
I think you guys should keep it secret.
hey, we are the movers and shakers, or shapers, I would say, not
Yeah.
shakers.
I think, I mean, so this was, it's kind of interesting, right? So when I joined Conversica, their whole thing was AI. They kind of have AI, what they call revenue digital assistants, but basically
Yeah,
AI SDR, BDRs, AI CSMs that kind of do the mundane communication that like reps just don't want to do, right? I
yeah,
mean, and we kind of look at the SDR and BDR role. The SDR and BDR role is an interesting one because there is no SDR and BDR out there who say, this is my career. I want to be an SDR and BDR forever. Like, this is like my goal in life. Like, they all want to get out to be AEs, right? They're like, as soon as they land the SDR BDR role, they're like, what's my exit plan to get promoted to be an AE, right? So you kind of have this group of people kind of doesn't want to be there, right? And so, we created this platform, or Conversica created this platform by which like a lot of like the mundane kind of like inbound, outbound messaging is all done by
yeah,
AI. And now it's become a normal thing, right? So many companies are doing this today.
yeah,
Um, I do think that there's probably portions of work that PDMs do that could probably be complemented, supplemented by AI, right? Like, so basic questions, queries, knowledge articles, like, hey, point me in this right direction. Like, hey, what's your
yeah,
policy around this? Like, questions by which like there is, and here's the thing, AI doesn't function without a knowledge base, right? So there needs to be reference data that
yeah.
the AI has to be able to map against. So unless you're structurally sound in terms of like the reference point that the AI has to come up with an answer to queries, you're just going to create more work because you have to train the AI to like answer very specific questions versus referencing them to a particular set of data to kind of help some of those queries. But I do think that things like even like on the partner application forms, right? Like it could go in and automatically reject if you don't have a proper company domain, for example. If you're, like we probably wouldn't take anyone with a hotmail.com account, for example. Just like,
Well, I guess Asher's excluded then.
so, you
I'm a
know, like,
Yahoo.com guy.
so, or an AOL.com, like you'd be like,
Right.
so those would be like there are some criteria that AI can be the initial, and you don't need a human to kind of sift through those applications. And we'll get, tens and hundreds of these in a given month, right? Like you don't want somebody to just comb through that, but an AI could reject, go back and send a message saying, sorry, we rejected it. These are the reasons. If you have any questions, come back. So that initial kind of touch points on some of the long tail, I could definitely see that to be, AI automated, right?
That,
I
that
mean,
was that was my thought process too. But the hypothesis, like you can do with half the partner managers, because the types of activities that they're doing today, which is more in the program management side of things versus the selling efforts, could just be handled by agents. This is not tomorrow, but this could be in like 3 years or 4 years. Like once we put all the data together and train the models and stuff like that. But so to me, I was like, okay, well, Conversica is actually the company that made the A-rated leads go to sales reps, B-rated leads go to SDRs, and C and D-rated leads go to agents, right? Like you were actually the company that created that thinking in the market, right? And then a lot of companies actually borrowed, I'm putting it nicely, that thinking, and then created other applications around it. Which at that time was innovative. So I was curious, like, to see what you would think about this problem. But what about the other side of this, where could AIs the agents do, let's say there's a HubSpot agent and there's an Asana agent, chat to uh, enable the HubSpot sales reps or be the co-seller for the agent for the HubSpot sales rep or the Asana sales rep. Like, what about that?
I think you could do that to Aaron's point, though, if it was already built up and well defined and you had a data around a process and a mechanism, right? Like you couldn't go into an organization where that motion didn't already exist and just have
Yeah.
agents facilitate it. It would fall apart. The sellers don't effectively co-sell together. I think you still need a human touch to ramp it up. If you get to a place where that is like firing on all cylinders, I think you can take out the person in the middle. And even before that, the agent could find these opportunities, right? So like I see a near-term future where you're using Crossbeam data, you're using the connected CRM data, like the agent can find the opportunities and surface them in a really compelling way that takes some of that off the partner manager plate. So I feel like that's possible.
Yeah, I think certainly like you take Crossbeam data, you can take some of like potentially consumption usage data and say, hey, like we, based on our modeling, the AI could say, we believe that these companies are up for expansion or renewals or whatever it is, right? Are they going to cross over what their contract is? Like they're going to be in overage, just have discussions with them. I also think in terms of even selecting of partners could be automated, right? Like an AE could say, hey, like I have this customer, they're in this particular sector, here's what they need. And then the AI agent could then go in, okay, well, based on these criteria, here are the handful of partners that have these particular skills. Like, so for example, we'll have a customer that says, hey, I need to know, it's Asana plus NetSuite plus Snowflake plus, I don't know, some other applications, right? Like 4 or 5. And so we could go into our kind of database automatically and say, who are the partners that have skills in these 4 or 5 areas, and kind of surface that automatically, right? So you don't need to kind of bother the PDM for that, who then manually goes into some database anyway that's already there, right? So
yeah, I think that's a good call out because in a lot of organizations, a lot of what PDMs are asked to do is kind of find the partner, right?
Yeah.
Like look at your partner book, who's the right partner for this job. And I agree, like as long as you're sitting on good data, that's the key, right? Because like junk into AI means junk out. But if you have high quality data and enough data, and that's where larger organizations are going to be at an advantage, then absolutely, I feel like they could
find me the right partner use case for AI is pretty simple. Like I was I met with the team at Infobip like last week or so, and they actually created this in house. They were like, we have engineers, we spun it up, we tried it out for 3 months, and we've got these partners who are tiered based on their commitment to us, and then all we need to do is we need to figure. Then it's a matching algorithm on the other side of it, and there's like 70,000 matching algorithms out there, and they're routing them. Like
that's amazing.
Which I think is pretty innovative for a company that's being built out of Croatia. All right, what else? Kelly? What's on top of mind for you? I keep coming back to Kelly, and then she's like next to like Eron. Like what else do we want to talk about?
Well, I'd be curious. What about the AI on the partner team's tech stack in general? Like, Aaron, what is your tech stack look, and how are you thinking about that moving forward the next couple of years? There's been a proliferation of partner tech, like new tools, but a lot of them are still kind of smaller startups. So
yeah. So we have a lot of AI. So it's kind of funny. Asana is pretty like robust. Like we use Asana for pretty much everything we do in the company. And there is embedded AI. So we're very close with both Anthropic and OpenAI. So, our AI engine kind of runs through both. I use it a lot, even our Asana AI. So I travel a lot. I fall behind on my things that people assign to me or things that I have to do or approve and stuff, right? And so every 2 weeks, I would go to the Asana AI and say, can you help me prioritize my work? And it goes into my Asana inbox and all of my tasks and just kind of like takes 2 minutes and say, hey, like there's some workday approvals that's pending you. Like people want to go on vacation, right? Or, people are, just got their promotions confirmed. You need to go communicate with them. There's like, you have a board meeting that's coming up. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that like I've honestly been saved a couple of times because like the AI will like literally tell me, it goes like, this is due tomorrow, and it's buried in my task list or it's buried in my inbox. And so, but that I know I'm probably a rudimentary AI user, but we have a lot of project managers who use the AI for smart summaries. Like instead of having to write your own summary, like the AI can go into the project and literally pull all of the updates, help to create a summary, right? And then the project manager kind of, fixes the 10% or, adjusts the 10% and 90% is there. So there's already a lot of AI built in. And then last week in New York, we launched what we called AI Studio, which kind of allows companies now to create really customized workflows powered by AI for any. So the three of us could have different, let's say, problems or challenges in terms of like our personal work, and you can actually create this from a very personalized AI, which is very different than what some of the AI companies have come with, right? So a lot of AI companies like Conversica, like even Salesforce's Agent Force, the AI is coming with like, I'm trained to do X. So
Yeah.
it may fit certain buyers versus like, here's a canvas of, basically workflows that you can create based on your job and what you need AI to help you. Like, so we're not predetermining what the AI from Asana will do. Like, we will let you determine that based on your job, based on your scope. So like Conversica is like, yeah, you go to Conversica to buy an AI CSM, an AI SDR, and an
Mhm.
AI BDR. You go to Salesforce to buy Agent Force for helping you with customer service, right? Like they're very specific. So like, somebody in finance wouldn't go to Conversica. Like that would
Yeah,
not be an ICP,
true.
right? Somebody in finance could definitely come to us because we just have a canvas with tooling for you to kind of
Yeah, yeah,
develop
yeah.
these workflows, right? So, which I think it would be like probably where things are going to go is much more of like a design centered AI versus like predisposed, pre-prescribed AI bots that do only X, right? Or can do, because then think about it, like then you have to have multiple.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
totally.
going to increase the complexity because you're like, well, I'm going to buy Conversica for this, but I'm going to buy Agent for this, but I'm going to buy Sierra for this. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of other things because I want these bots, because these bots only do certain things well, but not other things.
Not the other things. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I can totally see it because Dun and Bradstreet has this thing called a data studio where they will allow you to take data from multiple sources, right? Like, and we all think we're on go to market, so we think about like leads, ops, and deals and stuff. But there's like invoicing data out there. There's like insurance data out there. There's like so many different types of data. And the data studio can actually allow you to like connect different data types together, and then you create this amazing table. And then, but then how do you then train or put the right bot on top of that? And that to me, I mean, you guys have yours, but I feel like OpenAI should have their own studio which has all these apps in it, right? And people can pick and choose which use case they want to solve for. Interesting. Did
Yeah.
not think of that.
Yeah. I think this is probably where, the more we get citizen developers, that it's clicks, not codes, is drag and drop, right? But
Yeah,
again, even for Asana's AI Studio, to Kelly's point, there's a lot of thinking that needs to be done. Like, okay, like, yeah, I need a workflow to approve, let's say, like the partner
yeah.
application, right? You kind of have to think about what's the workflow look like, who has to approve, where does the AI go to for reference data, like, what other sort of sources of data that it needs to look at, where does it sit, right? There's a lot of thinking that has to be done. And I think that's the other opportunity for, when we announced it last week, we also, onboarded and certified a couple of our channel partners to start with, right? Spur Reply being one of them,
Yeah.
because yeah, like the platform is great, but but customers are also not going to be like, it's not their job. Like their job is not to build AIs. Their job is to, I don't know, as a controller in a company, right? Or their job is something else. Their job is not to learn AI and kind of do these things. So having a partner who can say, yeah, I can help you think through these things. I can help you guide you through these things. And maybe I can even build it for you.
Build it for you. Yeah.
So I do think that as the world gets more complex, and I think there's it's going to be difficult for us to stop the complexity of apps because of just, it's so easy because so many PLG companies out there. I think there is a need for people who can come in and help out,
Yeah. And one question on your just on your new program, I guess. There is one thought process in the market where people are saying we want to build our program on just outcomes. So like all the you have these like sales partners and you have marketing partners and you have these build partners, right? But then you have like referral partners and you have like solution partners and service partners. They're kind of segmented by competency, and then there's another thinking that's segmented by outcome. Was that a discussion internally, and
That's
you guys decided to
interesting.
go with the competency versus the outcome based program?
We did talk about it, but again, based on where we were in the evolution, we've decided to kind of do the crawl, walk, run, right?
Yeah.
And so we're like, let's just get the infrastructure going, because for us to do the outcome base, we will need a lot of really sophisticated systems on the back end, on the finance
Ah, okay. Yeah,
tracking
yeah, yeah,
side.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Totally.
that's a whole gamut
Yeah, totally.
of different things that like we're like,
Totally.
let's just get the program up and running, build momentum, and over time we can kind of tweak it, right? Like we were even thinking
Yeah,
of like, hey, what's the best way to kind of assign quota, like for example to these
yeah,
like
yeah.
accounts, right? Can we do sophisticated commission based systems and whatnot? Like we really dreamed up a whole bunch of stuff, but we're like, okay, that's not
What,
good.
what can we do this year?
We have a 20-year plan here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, right. So we'll
that,
get there. We'll get there,
yeah,
and but
interesting.
let's
Yeah,
let's kind of set up. Yeah,
I didn't think of like because you're operating at such a scale, right? I think you have like hundreds, thousands of like paying customers, and I'm sure like an equivalent number of like partners that are out there, especially the people who are your customers that are influencers that are also partners, right, in the program. So just managing that whole ecosystem on the back end is probably a whole other like journey in
yeah.
itself.
It's like
Well,
revenue operations, revenue,
Yeah,
strategy,
yeah, yeah,
finance
yeah, totally,
operations,
totally.
accounting, billing, like all like it's not just my team. It's like the
The
shadow
whole,
that the
yeah,
program casts, requires system process changes on the back end.
yeah.
and do you guys use Asana to manage your relationships with your partners, or
Yes,
do
so
you?
every partner gets access to Asana. They get to use it for their own usage, and then we communicate through Asana. So, like when we make announcements on, whether it's a product change or product launch
Yeah.
or changes in policies admin, we would go through the Asana instance, by which then they get communicated out into
And do
the.
you like run campaigns through it as like the way to coordinate and like hit goals, or do you use other systems for that?
So our what you refer to as PDMs, or we call them CPMs, channel partner managers, right? They would kind of provide support for, like, let's say the top 8 to 10 kind of high touch, right? And so most of our CPMs have running projects, Asana to Asana kind of infrastructure with those partners, right? And so we just talked to one today, and we're like, hey, let's just spin up a task so we can keep track of each other. So we'll do all the communications inside the Asana instance. Because then the other thing as well, it's easy to search, it's auditable, right? It's like we don't have to find, like, was that over email or text or Slack? Like it would be like in one place, right? So
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's talk.
Asher, you better send Aaron a task to sign up for partnership
we
leaders.
can, hey, listen, we can, like, this whole podcast is you guys plan for the year. Like you could definitely run this whole thing on like Asana. Like you could just like literally schedule, have speakers task, and here are the questions we might be
Yeah,
asking,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you can
Well,
actually document this over time, right? So
we'll,
um
we'll do a trade. How about that on this call here?
do a trade, it'll be good.
Sign
So
up, and we'll do this. Although our process is pretty straightforward. We are like, who would be interesting to talk to right now? Let's reach out through our networks, and then
It's
Kelly and I
very
debate
rigorous.
for like two
no,
weeks.
but
Like,
think
who
about
should
think
reach
about
out?
like the recording, like all the time. You can also you can I could imagine this task is podcast with Aaron, right? And then they will have like certain details on it. The
Yeah,
recording could be there. So if we want to revisit, they'll be like, you just go in there and it's like it's there in the sauna, right?
yeah.
So
No, it's
It's true, and it can remind us to have people back in 6 to 12 months because we
that's
always
right.
want
That's right.
to, but we're not organized. So I
we're
love
we're we're
it.
still we're still testing the market, as they call it. We haven't figured out our playbook yet, but it's been fun. I mean, we've had some amazing guests like yourself just to share with us, especially you who has who I guess it was part of the pioneering of the thinking around like go to market AI. Like, I mean, this is not a, like, we're just getting all excited about it now because there's this usage and stuff. But you guys were at the work you guys were doing at Conversica was actually basically the front runner to all this stuff that's happening right now. Let's switch gears real quick, because the interesting about your role, or at least your journey, which is a little bit similar to mine, is where you actually did go from a partnerships role to running all revenue, right? And then you actually went back to partnerships, which is great. But talk to us a little bit about just the journey, the mindset of going from a partnerships leader role to a revenue leader role, because it's almost, in some ways, it's like, you have to go think about optimizing revenue versus on this side you're optimizing relationships, right? And so, but it's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, so again, I just jogging back to like the 15 years ago comment that this person said to say you're really good at alliances, and I wasn't sure why he said it. I just know it's really difficult. And why I thought it was difficult was because it's hard enough to get your sellers to report to you to kind of hit your numbers. Imagine trying to do this through a third party who doesn't even work for you. Like, you could walk out anytime, right? I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do that job, right? So, but I think maybe what that individual saw was the fact that, like, hey, like, this is all about connecting dots, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it. And so, as I mature as a professional as well, was as deals get more complex, as the tech landscape gets more complex, I did see the fact that, like, I call it the non-linear growth, right? And so the linear growth, and Salesforce is very good at this, would be like, hey, what's the number we have to hit? Then you say, okay, well, what's the AE capacity that you need? Based on, then you say, okay, then I need X number of new AEs to hit that number. Based on that AE, what's the SC ratio? How many SCs do I have to hire? What's the CS? It's a very linear formula, right? The non-linear formula would be like, well, how many partners do I need to kind of hit that? But then you're like, you don't really control how many AEs, SCs, and CSMs those partners have. And those people don't sit on your books, right? And so, like, if I was to go into a new market, for example, like, let's pick a difficult one. So my home country, Indonesia, right? My birth country, Indonesia. Okay. So they speak Bahasa. It's got like so many provinces. It's, it's split, east to west is probably the equivalent of the United States. Okay. Yeah. So if Asana or any company was serious about going into Indonesia, it's for direct sales, it's a minimum of 5 people who speak fluent Bahasa. You need an AE who speaks Bahasa. You need an SE who can demo and speak Bahasa. You need a CSM who can speak in Bahasa. You need an SDR and a BDR. That's 5 people just to enter a market. Or I could go partner route and say, are there partners I could train? And they already have AEs, they already have SDR. I just need to certify them, right? So that's like, I would say over time, I kind of realized the power of like that nonlinear growth. And then I also saw when I was at Salesforce, really the growth at Salesforce in, I would say 2016, 17, 18 was when the GSIs, Accenture, Deloitte, Slalom really lean hard and build Salesforce practices, and they lean hard. I mean, that just accelerated so much because suddenly there's so much more reach, but the conversations got elevated as well. It wasn't just so much about Salesforce in itself. It was Salesforce connected to all this other stuff, right? That was when, like, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's something here. And so, then I went to a small company like Conversica, and we were like, I had 6 AEs in Conversica, like literally, right? And so we had a huge, ecosystem of partners, especially in the automotive space, where we had people who understood, how to sell into automotive dealerships, right? And so when we were able to carve out markets, hey, if a dealership comes in and they're a certain size, let's just kick it off to a partner. The rest we'll kind of handle ourselves. And so it was a really good ecosystem and playbook, right? And I think for me, the evolution in my head is you can't win the market without partners. It's just the market's too big, it's too complex. You will never have the competencies will be too expensive for you to build it, right? The example that I gave earlier, like we literally had a customer that we were working with, and they were like, well, we love Asana, but we needed to be connected to NetSuite. We also need to connect it to Snowflake and like these like two other applications. We don't have the skills for that. I don't have Snowflake expert people in Asana. I don't have NetSuite expert people in Asana. But guess what? There are partners out there who know these things, right? So, and that's like the linear growth would be like, the linear mindset would be like, I got to go hire Snowflake experts, right? Like that is not, that's going to be the slowest growth and the most expensive growth, right? You're going to have, but the ability to kind of tap into an ecosystem of experts out there, I think it's the fastest way, and it's also going to be where the customer is going to get the most flexible support, right? Because a lot of our partners are probably a lot more flexible in terms of like meeting certain terms and conditions or just wanting to kind of work with the customers.
And is that what Conversica realized then? And they were like, hey, we actually need somebody to lead the revenue organization with this mindset versus what traditional CROs would have done is the waterfall, which is like, I need more people.
Yeah, I think so. At Conversica, so I was there for like a year and a half, and so Jim Cascade, and I have been long-term friends. So he's the CEO there, so I've been long-term friends. It was looking at like that next stage of growth, right? It was like, hey, if we were to go into more enterprise level, like we need to bring in somebody like a Deloitte, for example, right?
Okay.
And so, and we need to be part of a wider ecosystem like Salesforce.
Yeah.
When I left,
market initiative required.
correct. When I left, we did sign a partnership agreement with Deloitte. We also signed an agreement with Marketing Cloud, for example, right? I'm not sure where those have gone, but it kind of opened up new doors for a small company like Conversica to kind of play in a bigger pool, right? And I think that's just, if you think about distribution, like, these bigger companies have wider distribution and, deeper distribution capabilities as well, right? And same with Asana. We're not big, right? We are, roughly 1,800, employees, right? Like, so for us to cover our hundreds and thousands of customers, like it can be very expensive for us to hire a whole bunch of CSMs and support and AEs, right? And so the way to kind of reach our next goal is through an ecosystem of partners.
All right, I'm gonna pause here because we want to be respectful of your time, and we could, this is what I do for a living, so I could chat with you forever about this stuff. I'm sure both of you have meetings as well. This was great. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us, and we'll end with what we always say. We'll invite you back as we start diving into just the companies like Asana and then developer ecosystems and like things like that. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for all the great work that you're doing, and we'll see you around.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on here. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to Unlearn. Subscribe wherever you listen and visit unlearnpodcast.com for the transcripts.